2024 saw ISIS attacks spike. This massive concert hall attack in Moscow, killing more than 100 people in March. Their deadliest, claimed by their most active franchise, ISIS-K or ISKP, in Afghanistan. A month later, this bloody attack inside a Russian jail. 4 guards killed. A stabbing attack followed in Germany. They attacked in Afghanistan and Iran. Another of their estimated 10 franchises or provinces fought Nigerian troops.
We've seen a huge increase in tempo over the last year or two. In 2024, there were like 14 or 15 arrests related to the Islamic State in the U.S.
It's a far cry from 5 years ago, when ISIS appeared to be on the back foot. Their short-lived Iraq and Syrian caliphate beaten by US and coalition partners into a seeming surrender. But not anymore, according to MI5's intelligence chief.
After a few years of being pinned well back, they've resumed efforts to export terrorism. We and many European partners are detecting IS-connected activity in our homelands, which we're moving early to disrupt.
Taylor Swift and her Eras tour in Vienna, beneficiary of the heightened safeguarding. An ISIS-inspired plot forcing her to call off her show. What has changed, Zelin says, is that ISIS is centralizing, learning from its mistakes in Syria.
They integrated a lot of their provinces together under this general directorate of provinces. So there's a bit more coordination on the global level within its network.
In the Mideast, the ISIS brand is apparently still attracting supporters, like these 3 Omanis in one of many such ISIS propaganda videos the terror group posts. Their bloody bounce back began several years ago, gaining temporary global attention, killing 13 US troops as coalition forces pulled out of Afghanistan in 2021. But since then, most of ISIS's recovery has not sparked massive global attention. 2025 might be the year that changes.
If they can do something in the US, if they can do something in Europe, if they can do something in Russia, Turkey, Iran, Central Asia, if they can do it, they'll do it, because for them, it's a global war.
And success for ISIS in this context could be as simple as an attacker like Shamsuddin Jabbar claiming, as he has, to have acted in ISIS's name when he may not have had any physical contact or support from them. Nic Robertson, CNN, London.
With us now is CNN national security analyst and host of the In Room podcast, Peter Bergen. Peter, great to see you. So many, in the West thought that ISIS had been defeated. So how are they or its influence enjoying this resurgence?
Well, Fred, a few points. One, the most virulent affiliate is ISIS-K, which is based in Afghanistan, which of course is now controlled by the Taliban. And while the Taliban have been occasionally fighting ISIS-K, the Taliban have been, according to the UN, there are 20 terrorist organizations that are based there now. So whether the Taliban has the capacity or the inclination to go after these terrorist groups is an open question. So I think one factor is the fact that the Taliban are now back in power in Afghanistan. And now you have a formerly affiliated with Al-Qaeda terrorist group that now controls Syria. And there's some debate about how they changed their spots or not. But the fact is some ISIS prisoners were let go when the Assad regime was toppled. And secondarily, there are a bunch of camps and prisons that are containing ISIS prisoners in northeastern Syria, which people are concerned may come under attack, and there may be more prisoner releases. So some of this is to do with circumstances in the Middle East, and some of this is to do with the fact we still don't know the precise motivations of the New Orleans attacker. He obviously had a very troubled personal history, and he may have been shopping around for an ideology that allowed him to do what he did. But ISIS remains, a revolutionary ideology that losers like the New Orleans attacker or others, and we've seen that in the United States before, can attach themselves to. And in their own minds, they become a hero in their own story, even though their own lives are usually going nowhere fast.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this, truck attacker, Jabbar, did post a video saying he was inspired by ISIS, but as we, have reported, ISIS is not necessarily saying that they've are claiming responsibility or even had an affiliation with that person. However, what do you glean from his approach? I mean, this use of a vehicle to cause mass carnage as he did, the planning. I mean, some of his tactics do mirror things that ISIS-inspired attacks also claim to have hallmarks of.
Sure, and his sort of personality and what he did reminds me of another so-called soldier of ISIS, which was Omar Mateen, who sort of shopped around for ideologies. At one point, he flirted with Al Qaeda, and then Hezbollah, then ISIS. These are groups that often don't agree with each other. And he'd come to the attention of the FBI. He killed 49 people at a gay nightclub in Orlando in 2016. He also said, as he was carrying out the attack, that he was a soldier of ISIS. There was no evidence that Omar Mateen, who was an American citizen born in Queens, New York, had any real connection to ISIS other than self-proclaimed. My guess is that's what we'll see in New Orleans. We're still, obviously, we had a press conference today. The FBI is still trying to sort out some of this. But, he wouldn't be the first person who proclaims himself to be a soldier of ISIS who has really nothing to do with the group. Certainly doesn't appear to have traveled to Syria or Iraq or other places where ISIS has camps.
Would there be any gain from ISIS claiming some responsibility or affiliation, even by someone who says, they have pledged their allegiance to the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is yes. But the ISIS Central is, they are, obviously they've lost their geographical center in Syria and Iraq. They may have other things on their mind. But often these groups will sort of take responsibility if somebody claims responsibility in the name of ISIS. They themselves will sort of say, yes, we inspired this, or we, helped activate this person.
How do you see intelligence, U.S. intelligence or law enforcement preparing itself, bracing itself for others who carry out horrible deeds and claim their affiliation or their allegiance to a group like ISIS?
Well, in the case of the New Orleans attacker, we now know that fairly definitively that he had no help. So that kind of person's hard to stop because there's no one to confide in. There's no communications that can be intercepted, or it's just a lot harder to stop. I mean, we saw that in the previous administration. An Uzbek American killed 8 people in Manhattan in a vehicle ramming early on in the Trump administration. So, unfortunately, this is something that we've seen before. Unfortunately, it's likely to happen again. You don't need any special training to rent or buy a vehicle and then carry out this kind of attack.